In this module, we're going to be talking about an active shooter threat, to detect and respond to an active shooter. So it's a very serious topic, and unfortunately, it's more common every day to encounter news or incidents or articles about active shooters in X or Y places. First of all, it's necessary to define what an active shooter is. Is this a random shooting? Is this drug-related? What's an active shooter? According to the Department of Homeland Security, an active shooter is an individual who is actively engaged in killing basically as many people as possible in the shortest time possible. Active shooters have a very limited time frame. You are most likely to never be able to predict who is going to be an active shooter, and that's one of the greatest challenges that authorities, federal and state law enforcement agencies have when it comes to an active shooter threat. It's very, very hard to predict. These are people that don't have necessarily a target. They will shoot anything that moves, and if it's not moving, they will come back and shoot it just to make sure they're dead. When an active shooter attacks, they go into a tunnel vision mode. And this tunnel vision will only basically allow them to see what's right in front of them. If you take both your hands and go like this, you will see that you can only see clearly what's in front of you. Your hearing is amplified. You get like spider senses because of the adrenaline rush. And that is what makes an active shooter so dangerous. According to federal and state authorities that have vast experience in studying active shooter phenomena, which is not a new thing, we do know that the situations are basically unpredictable. They tend to escalate and drop quickly. That means that the evolution of the incident is very quick. There are active shooter incidents that lasts 5 or 7 minutes. This is not enough time for law enforcement to arrive. That is why it's very important to know what to do in case of an active shooter threat. Those situations are usually very, very short. That gives us even less time to react. That's why practicing, drilling, and basically going through in your head, in your mind, what you're going to do is key for if at some point you encounter a situation like this. Let's pray you never do. What we don't know, however, is the pattern or method, who will be an active shooter, what will trigger that event. Usually it's a psychological trigger. It could be something as seemingly harmless as getting fired from a job, getting passed over for a promotion, encountering traffic for a situation that they understand they could have prevented. There are reasons that go through religious, ethnic, racial reasons. There are several incidents that have been occurring more recently that makes us think that maybe religious motives are increasing and business motives are decreasing. But since there is no profile, it's very, very hard to kind of draw out a line or schematics that will give us a little bit more guidance on this. If we look at the graphic, then we're going to see that most active shooter scenarios happen in businesses, in schools, open spaces, government facilities, but basically they can happen just about anywhere. That is what makes this even more dangerous. That graphic takes 13 years, 14 years of active shooter incidents, and it was studied by the FBI. If you want more information, you can visit the source at the bottom of the slide, or you can Google Mother Jones Database. That is basically a database that is part of a non-profit project that gathers all active shooter incidents from the early 1980s. So this is not a new incident, this is not a new phenomenon, this is something that has been happening for a while. Just media access has made us more aware. Lately, we might know of the New Haven Elementary School shooting, where the victims were mostly kindergarten children. Very recently, just a few weeks ago, there was an active shooter in Canada, earlier in 2020. The New Zealand mosque shooter, who did a Facebook Live while he was shooting all these people. There was a shooting in Las Vegas, the Strip. There was shootings at synagogues, Columbine, that will live in infamy, and just about any place, malls, churches, synagogues, parks, schools, universities. These are all places that could be targets for active shooter incidents. Now, a good practice is to observe and be aware of your surroundings anywhere you go. If you look around, if you are aware of what is going on around you, if there's a fight, try to take a look and see what they're fighting about. Don't intervene, but be aware. Look at the possible dangers around you. That is very important, because if you see someone walking into a Walmart, for instance, with a shotgun, that might be a red light. However, it might not be something so obvious. There was an incident a few years back where a Walmart employee, in Texas, he had a concealed carry permit. He had his gun with him, and he saw these two individuals, a man and a woman, walk into Walmart carrying a backpack, and the man had a shotgun. These two individuals, the woman put her backpack on a shopping cart and started casually following the man with a shotgun. The man with the shotgun is the obvious threat. What no one noticed was the woman that, instead of running away from the man that was shooting, was following him. No one seemed to notice this because, remember what we were talking about, tunnel vision? Adrenaline rises, my vision constricts, and it's more tunnel-like. No one noticed the woman, and the woman was a shooter as well. This Walmart employee followed them. He was going to shoot the man. He was going to neutralize the threat, but unfortunately, the woman shot him first. Be very, very aware of any possible dangers around you. And of course, take note of emergency exits anywhere that you go. Localize at least 2. If you go to the movies, we'll remember the Batman premiere active shooter. If you go to a church, if you go to a mall, if you go to a nightclub, anywhere that you go, find the emergency exits and tell your family, tell whoever is with you, remember that those are the emergency exits. Could save your life. There's an active shooter in your facility right now. What are you going to do? It's 3 simple steps. Simple. You keep calm. I know it's hard. And in theory, it sounds great. However, this is the few seconds that you're going to have to think, what am I going to do? If you can run, you run. If you can hide, you hide. If you can't do either one, then you have to fight. If there is an accessible exit, an accessible escape path, take it. That is your first choice every time. Run, escape, evacuate the premises. Leave your belongings. Don't take anything with you. Try to have people go with you, but if they don't want to go, you will have to leave them behind. Never allow anyone to stop you from escaping. If you escape, you might be the only chance that law enforcement has to know that there is an active shooter happening right now, instead of waiting for the 5 o'clock news, instead of waiting for the active shooter to go out of the building and maybe start shooting people around the street. You might be able to be that alert voice that will let law enforcement know what's happening. Don't try to move wounded people. You don't know the extent of their wounds, so it's best to just leave them and inform law enforcement that there are wounded people inside. And most importantly, keep your hands up, keep them visible, and try to not have anything, this is probably a bad example, try to not have anything in your hands, because law enforcement will think you might be an active shooter if you have something in your hands. So palms open, facing forward, nothing in your hands, drop whatever you have. It's very important. If you can't escape, you're trapped somewhere, or there is only one exit that you know of, hiding is your best possible alternative. Try to find somewhere where you think the active shooter will not see you. I know it sounds obvious. It's a life or death hide and seek situation. This is called shelter in place. If you stay where you are, you seek shelter right at that place. If you have a door, if you can block it, lock the door, block the door, and enter in basically a lockdown. No one gets in, no one goes out. Even if you hear banging on the door, the active shooter might be right behind that person. It's a difficult choice. It's a difficult decision. That is why if you have everyone on board on an active shooter drill, an active shooter response plan, it's going to improve everyone's chances of saving their lives. Now let's say that you can't escape and you can't hide. You don't have anywhere to hide. Or the place that you're hiding becomes compromised. Something goes off, something falls, there's a sound. That place will be compromised. You have to be able and ready and willing to fight. And this is not fight, I don't know if you're a fan of the Naked Gun movies, Leslie Nielsen, or more recently, Mr. Bean. This is not Mr. Bean fighting. This is fighting for your life, for the lives of anyone that is with you. You have to act as aggressively as possible, as aggressively as you can, and improvise weapons. A fire extinguisher could be a good weapon. A chair could be a good weapon. A knife could be a good weapon. If you have a firearm could be a good weapon. Whatever weapon you can use, whatever weapon you can find, whatever weapon you can make at that moment is good. Work together with whoever you're in. Work together so that you can all take down that threat and hit until it stops moving. Now, remember, when law enforcement arrives, you can expect them to be wearing tactical equipment. These big, bulky suits, kind of like RoboCop. They might use tear gas. They might use pepper spray. They need to use all the tools they have available to try to neutralize the threat. Never go like this. If you're moving your hands quickly, law enforcement cannot see what you're doing or what you have in your hands, and they might shoot you. They are there to neutralize. Don't be surprised if they push people down, if they bypass wounded people, because the first and foremost mission of that first wave of law enforcement is to neutralize the threat. Do tell them, hands up, he's that way. That is a good thing to do. And just keep moving towards whatever direction law enforcement is coming from, because they're coming from the exit. So you remain calm, you point if possible, but avoid sudden movement. This is not the same as this, okay? Don't make sudden movements. Okay? Keeping calm, trying to keep your head is the most important thing you can do to be able to get out and get out safely. Now think of the fog of war, kind of like that. Think of a foggy night. What can you see? You can't see anything. So this is a very common term in wartime. That's why it's called the fog of war. And it's that moment where you're immersed in a situation and you don't know what to do. So you freeze up, or you enter a state of denial. No, this is not happening. This can't be happening. When you enter this moment, there's not a good chance. To avoid the fog of war, you practice. You program yourself mentally. Try to do it. Try to have this become a part of your life. Become as mechanic as possible so that your instinct is to survive.